It's a tale as old as time. Another MMO has been canceled, and I'm in a new place. And this is borderline depressing, so hang on one second. There, now it's festive for Halloween. And I think that is kind of befitting of a lot of stuff going on in the MMO space, where everything is kind of shitty right now. But I do have some good news as well, because out of that shittiness, we have one of the best named studios I have ever seen. We'll get to that at the end. But first, we have to talk about Project Ghost and what sounds like potentially the end of the road for a game that seemed a bit interesting, had a lot of questions around it, but might be seeing the door before we even get to play it. Netease is dumping the studio that is making Project Ghost, Ghostcrawler's MMO. Greg Street, Ghostcrawler from WoW and Riot fame. A game that we just actually saw recently in a pretty big content creator test, I guess is the best way to put it, that had MMO creators like Josh Drive Hayes and CodeCarnage. Well, I guess CodeCarnage is a variety stream, but you know what I mean. They had them all play the game, jump in, see what things are going on, and the game had this interesting attempt at a system where they would be trying to pull together what sounded a little bit like a lobby MMO, but expanding upon it and making it bigger and adding in some roguelike elements. What it feels now is that may have been a little bit of desperation, because Netease is now cutting off Fantastic Pixel Castle, who is making that MMO. And that news was broken by Greg Street, saying, quote, "I want to share the news that Fantastic Pixel Castle's time as a first-party studio within Netease Games is coming to an end. Netease Games has been very gracious and supportive of looking for another publisher for our game." Sounds like they're looking to sell it. However, in the current market environment, very few deals are getting made for any game, let alone something on the scale of an MMORPG. So that alone sounds rough, but then you get a little bit more into it and it sounds even rougher. Quote, "We're doing everything we can to find a publisher or investor. At the same time, we're encouraging our team members to explore future opportunities and supporting them through the uncertainty. If we're unable to find a publisher soon, the reality is that the studio would likely close and the entire team, leadership included, would be affected. We want to thank the Ghost community, our playtesters, and the literally hundreds of people who have given us advice on how to find funding in this absurdly challenging time for our industry. I hope you all will have a chance to play Ghost. I also want to thank the FPC team who has made a game that we all should be proud of. I know it's cliche to say this, but demonstrably, this is the best team I have ever worked with. We are rigorous in collecting data, and the data on our team morale and performance is higher than I have ever seen. Despite the challenges, the past 2 years have been the most satisfying of my career. This, of course, is going to be disappointing for anyone who's interested in the MMO genre. I myself actually had a script in the writing of the MMO projects that I was still excited about, and Project Ghost was on there along with a couple others. It was one of those games that I was hopeful of because it was doing something a little bit different and bringing in something new to the genre. But unfortunately, it's not gonna happen. We're not gonna actually be able to see how or if that was going to work, which is kind of on the heels of the sadness that was the cancellation of the Zenimax MMO, a game that actually, funnily enough, well, they're coming back. Not the game, but the studio that was making it, because the studio was called Blackbird Studios, and they were cut in the Microsoft push for AI, basically just cutting off a team despite the game apparently being liked by the people that were playing it and being liked by the actual people, funding it. But, AI, I guess. So they've actually created this new studio, and I don't think that there is any studio that has had a better name coming out of something like this. Sackbird Studios is the new studio made from former Project Blackbird developers. It is not a big studio by any means. In fact, it is a new employee-owned studio that is independently funded for multiple years with no need for outside investment, although it currently has fewer than 10 people. They said the following in a press release, quote, "Today, a group of veteran developers behind Elder Scrolls Online and the canceled Project Blackbird announced the formation of Sackbird Studios, an independent employee-owned game studio that is self-funded for multiple years, with no outside investors and full creative control. The team is focused on building great games on their own terms." Quote, "After years in AAA, we wanted the freedom to take smart risks without waiting for a green light or chasing quarterly targets. We're fully employee-owned and funded, which means we only answer to people who are passionate about games." Now, they didn't announce any actual game that they're working on just yet, just that it's going to be on PC and consoles. And I think that this is an interesting development in this whole saga of studios being closed and a lot of studios kind of propping up and popping up from former developers of those studios. It happens a lot more in the non-MMORPG space than in the MMORPG space. And I wouldn't suggest here that Sackbird Studios is going to be as ambitious as trying to make an MMO. But coming from making an MMO, it'll be interesting to see where they take all of that institutional knowledge that they have of working on Elder Scrolls Online and other games at Zenimax and take it and what are they going to make and create in the wake of getting, well, fired. It's going to be an interesting thing to see what happens, and I, for one, am pulling for Sackbird Studios, although I'll have to say Sack a lot, which is probably problematic for YouTube's algorithm. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Redbeard Flynn. This is a temporary setup. It is not my normal setup if this is the first time seeing me. I've been dealing with house issues for months, and this is just a continuation of those house issues. But thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have an absolutely wonderful day.